Elizabeth Holmes was just 19 years old when she dropped out of Stanford University with a dream of creating a company that would revolutionize blood testing.
And we'd like to see a world in which every person gets access to this type of basic testing.
She founded the startup Theranos and boasted her technology could take a pinprick worth of blood from the finger and perform hundreds of laboratory tests. It was, she claimed, quote, the most important thing humanity has ever built. At its zenith, Theranos was worth nearly $10 billion, and Elizabeth Holmes became the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world.
In Silicon Valley, there's one thing investors fear more than losing money: missing the next revolution, the next Apple, the next billionaire genius. And for years, many believed that genius was a young woman named Elizabeth Holmes. She spoke calmly, dressed simply, always in black turtlenecks, just like Steve Jobs. She claimed she was changing healthcare forever. Her company, Theranos, promised technology that sounded almost magical. A machine capable of performing hundreds of blood tests using only a few drops of blood from a finger prick. No large needles, no painful procedures. Fast results, cheap results, a revolution in medicine. The media called her the future. Powerful politicians supported her. Billionaire investors trusted her. At just 30 years old, Elizabeth Holmes became one of the richest self-made women in the world. Theranos reached a valuation of over $9 billion. But behind the scenes, employees were panicking. The machines didn't work. The science was collapsing. And the empire was built on deception. This is the story of ambition, power, manipulation, and one of the biggest fraud scandals in modern history. Elizabeth Holmes became extraordinarily skilled at persuasion. She spoke with certainty. She avoided technical details when possible. And she framed Theranos as a humanitarian mission instead of a business. She claimed the company would save lives, detect diseases earlier, help millions of people around the world. The story was powerful, and investors fell in love with it. Soon, Theranos attracted some of the most influential people in America: former government officials, military leaders, business elites. The company's board included people with enormous political and financial influence. But critics later noticed something shocking. Very few had deep medical or laboratory expertise. Yet nobody wanted to challenge the rising star of Silicon Valley. The media amplified the hype. Magazine covers praised Holmes as a visionary genius. She appeared on television constantly. The comparisons to Steve Jobs became endless. Holmes carefully controlled her image. Black turtleneck, minimal emotion, calm confidence. Everything about her was designed to create the image of a revolutionary inventor. And it worked. By 2014, Theranos was valued at approximately $9 billion. Elizabeth Holmes personally owned about half the company. On paper, she was worth billions. But inside Theranos headquarters, a very different story was unfolding. Employees inside Theranos reportedly faced extreme pressure. The company culture became deeply secretive. Departments were isolated from one another. Workers often didn't fully understand what other teams were doing. Former employees later described an atmosphere of fear. People who questioned the technology were ignored, isolated, or removed. And there was a reason. The machines weren't working. The famous Theranos devices repeatedly failed accuracy tests. Results became inconsistent. Some blood samples produced dangerous inaccuracies. At times, the company allegedly used traditional machines from other manufacturers to secretly perform tests while pretending the Theranos technology was responsible. That deception became one of the biggest scandals in the case, because patients trusted the results. Some people reportedly received alarming medical information that later turned out to be incorrect. Imagine being told you might have a disease because of unreliable technology. Inside the company, some employees became deeply uncomfortable. A few tried raising concerns internally. Others resigned. Some became whistleblowers. But Theranos fought aggressively to protect its image. Former workers described legal threats and intimidation. The company monitored leaks obsessively. Holmes and top executives reportedly feared exposure more than failure itself. And eventually, the truth started escaping. One man would become Theranos' greatest threat. Investigative reporter John Carreyrou from the Wall Street Journal. Carreyrou began hearing troubling reports from medical experts and former Theranos employees. At first, the claims sounded unbelievable. How could a company worth billions, backed by powerful elites, be built on faulty science? But as he investigated deeper, the evidence became overwhelming. Former employees described broken machines, manipulated demonstrations, false claims, and secretive practices. Theranos immediately tried stopping the investigation. Lawyers pressured sources. Executives denied allegations. Some whistleblowers feared their careers would be destroyed. But Carreyrou continued digging. Then in 2015, the Wall Street Journal published its bombshell investigation. The article shattered Theranos overnight. Suddenly, the company everyone praised became the center of a massive scandal. Regulators launched investigations. Investors panicked. Business partners began distancing themselves. And for the first time, the world started asking dangerous questions. Did the technology ever truly work? After the investigation, Theranos entered freefall. Federal agencies examined the company. Medical regulators identified major problems with laboratory practices. Partnerships collapsed. Retail pharmacies shut down Theranos testing centers. Investors realized they may have been deceived for years. And the carefully built image of Elizabeth Holmes began collapsing publicly. The woman once celebrated as a genius was now accused of fraud. Former admirers turned into critics. Media outlets that once praised her now questioned everything. In 2018, Theranos officially dissolved. But the legal battle was only beginning. Federal prosecutors charged Elizabeth Holmes with multiple counts of fraud. The accusations were devastating. Prosecutors argued Holmes knowingly misled investors and patients about Theranos technology. Holmes denied intentionally deceiving people. Her defense claimed she genuinely believed in the company's mission. But prosecutors argued belief did not erase deception. The trial became one of the most closely watched business cases in modern America. Because it wasn't just about Theranos anymore. It became a symbol of Silicon Valley itself. A culture where hype sometimes grew faster than truth. In 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was convicted on multiple fraud charges. The verdict marked the dramatic end of one of Silicon Valley's most shocking stories. The billionaire image was gone. The magazine covers disappeared. The empire collapsed. And the woman once compared to Steve Jobs now faced prison time. For victims and former employees, the conviction felt like accountability. But for others, the story raised bigger questions. How did so many intelligent people believe the impossible? Why did investors ignore warning signs? Why did the media celebrate hype without deeper scrutiny? And perhaps most importantly, how much of Silicon Valley culture rewards confidence over truth? The story of Theranos wasn't just about failed technology. It was about illusion, a carefully engineered fantasy sold to the world. Elizabeth Holmes understood something powerful. If people desperately want to believe in a miracle, they may stop asking difficult questions. And for years, that belief created billions of dollars. But eventually, reality catches up. The machines failed, the lies unraveled, and the empire collapsed under the weight of its own deception. Because no matter how powerful the image, no matter how wealthy the investors, and no matter how convincing the story, the truth eventually arrives. And when it does, even billion-dollar empires can disappear overnight.